transition into Duke the Dumpster Droese is going to be flawless because no matter what we're doing, we can say, "Oh, we're just going to take out that trash." And speaking of taking out the trash, oh look, see, look at that.
Did somebody say trash?
Somebody say trash. We were just saying how the transition into bringing you in is going to be flawless because we could just say we could just relate it to taking something out. Like we're just taking out the trash. And speaking of taking
here I am to screw the transition all up.
No, man, you did it great. It's one of the things that we actually take pride in on this show. We're a live show, so pop in whenever, jump in whenever, and throw us off our game. It's great. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me on the show. How are you guys doing?
I'm great, Vanessa. How are you doing?
Great.
Great. I had a busy day today. Got 3 daughters. They keep me extremely busy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Had a coworker. It was her last day. Well, tomorrow's her last day, but same difference. Busy day. Yeah. What would you be doing tonight if you were not on this show?
I go to bed early, man. I wake up early, and I generally during the weekdays I work for an adult recovery court program here where I live in Middle Tennessee, which is basically like it's like a probation / drug treatment program to give people an option instead of having to go to jail or prison if they have an underlying substance abuse problem. But that's my day job. That's my shoot job, as we say in the wrestling business, and that's generally what I do during the week. So yeah, evenings I'm not doing anything. I'm usually getting ready to crash because I wake up early, and usually there's something to be done early in the morning, whether it's drug testing people or GPS stuff or whatever. So that's kind of what I'm up to these days.
And I mean, it's been an extremely. When I was researching all my notes for you, first of all, when I say the name Duke the Dumpster Droese, it brings back a lot of memories for me watching wrestling. Like that was my time. That's when I enjoyed wrestling. I still enjoy it, but I can remember that. So when I was researching you, I had that to go on, and then it's literally, how would I put it? It's like riding a wave. Your journey is ups and downs, and there's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows, and
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly. And where you are now, I mean, I don't think we can cover it in one show. I can try to hit points in there, and like I wouldn't say you're a counselor for this drug program, but you probably do the same type of stuff.
Yeah, that's part of what I do.
Yeah.
That's part. I mean, it's part. Like I said, it's half and half. Partially, it's like probation on steroids, and then the other half, it's like really, it's just really effective, good drug treatment programs. So, and I'm a part of both. I mean, I handle a lot of the supervision, like I said, with drug testing, GPS monitoring when they're on house arrest. But then I also teach treatment classes like recovery skills and relapse prevention and stuff like that to try to kind of show them how to live life without that crutch anymore, without having to depend on that coping mechanism of using drugs. So yeah, I take a lot of pride in it. I've seen a lot of ups and downs in my time. I started
Yeah.
using drugs heavily when I was a professional wrestler just to get by. It was you take a beating, and a lot of guys did it. And I'm very fortunate to still be here because of some of the stupidity I went through. But I am here, and I'm trying to live my best life these days, and trying to use a lot of the trials and tribulations of my life and the things I've been through for a greater good, and trying to help other people that struggle with the same things.
And I mean, we don't need to go into details or even discuss like
Talk about
back.
whatever you want, brother.
Yeah. Back when you were wrestling, it was like right before the Attitude Era. Yeah, a lot of uh, you know grueling schedule, ride or die, like you said, heavy into drugs for injuries, probably a lot of drinking as well. But something you said to what you do now is relapse prevention. Um,
Yep.
and is that because anybody could go and physically get clean? Is relapse prevention the biggest hurdle for somebody?
With that question, I can tell that you honestly listen and you really, that's the most intelligent question I've ever been asked, actually, about my crossover into drug treatment, because that's what it's all about. Yeah, anybody can get physically clean, man. Anybody can quit using drugs, especially if they're going through a court process, if they've been
Mm,
arrested or something, and they're fearing jail time or prison time or whatever the case may be. Anybody, you can go to rehab and get clean, but that's not the work. The work starts after that, and that's where you learn what recovery is. And the probably, in my humble opinion, the biggest part of recovery in substance abuse is relapse prevention. You have to walk through life every day figuring out what your triggers are, the things that could set you off mentally, the things, that could drive you into that bad headspace to make you start looking around for like I said, a bad coping mechanism, which for addicts used to be using drugs, and we try to teach them new, more positive coping mechanisms, and getting around other people that are going through the same process. But man, you hit it on the head, brother. Relapse prevention is the name of the game, and that's why I teach. That was one of the first things I did is I started teaching that when I started working for this recovery court program, was because I knew how important it was in my recovery when I went through it. So yeah, man, a very good question. Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah, it researching your story and your journey, it got me thinking about a lot of stuff. Relapse prevention. I work with children with autism, um, school age kids, and I can teach them as far as these like behaviors, like these real aggressive behaviors. I can teach them. I can get them not to do them. Uh, but what the biggest hurdle for me and for them is to get them to realize what triggers them and what makes them do these certain things, and then take those triggers and basically deal with them and not relapse and fall into this behavior. It's like a vicious cycle. It's the same concept, sort of, almost. I hope I'm
Yeah, it's
making
behavior
sense.
modification. That's what it
Yes,
is. I used
thank
to
you.
be a special education teacher, and I know
Oh,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
spectacular.
and you're teaching them
Yep.
self sufficiency to learn, like you said, the triggers and the things that set them off, and you're teaching them slowly but surely how to self regulate. It's the same exact concepts. It's just with the people I work with, it's about drugs and
Yep.
alcohol, and the folks that you work with, it's about certain cognitive, perhaps disabilities or things of that nature that they have to learn to compensate for in their everyday life.
um Relapse prevention, is that a constant thing? You never actually achieve it. It's just something you're always working on.
Well, the relapse prevention, it is a constant, you constantly maintain. That is what recovery is. It's constant maintenance of what you're trying to do, and a big part of that is relapse prevention. And sometimes people do make mistakes and they fall and they backslide and they use or something of that nature. But yeah, we want to try and be as perfect as possible with the actual relapse prevention part. Now, there's no such thing as perfection, but
Mm,
if we can make it through the day without picking up drugs, no matter how bad things get, then that's a major moral victory. And so yeah, it's a constant program of maintenance, and I always tell people in recovery, there's no graduation from, there's no
yeah.
certificate or
Right.
diploma, man. You got to work on this the rest of your life,
Yeah.
because if you don't, then you become possibly complacent and you fall right back into making the same mistakes.
Um, Man, that's all great stuff, and everything you're doing with relapse prevention is great. And we're probably gonna touch a little bit on how you got to there, but maybe not. I don't know. I write bullet points down, and whether I get to them or not is the best part of this show. I'm good.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretend to be person that talks about wrestling, so we'll see if we can get that. Well, that's a it's
All
a
right, we figured we had to talk about wrestling at some point,
right,
right? I got
right. It's interesting. It's like we're a wrestling show, but sometimes it's the non-wrestling stuff that is either the most interesting or is what needs to be heard. Like you're that what you just said about relapse prevention and what you're doing right now. Although you got there on a journey like through wrestling and that's where you're there, that has nothing to do with wrestling, and it's way more important than wrestling to me. So
right.
I don't know. I just want to make sure I got to that.
Well, and the fact that you focused on that speaks volumes about your show, man. You're willing to go where the interest is. You're not just staying hyper focused with tunnel vision on just wrestling. Um, you know, you know something that is interesting when you hear it, and something that's important to talk about. And I think that's why you probably just did that.
Yeah. And that's I try. Yeah, we do our best. But
You're doing a great job, brother. It's good
so,
stuff, man. I'm having fun.
it's spectacular. And sorry about my dry cough. I have to put humidifiers. I think in my house. What I'm gonna need to do.
Ah,
You know.
I hear
Um.
you.
I won't talk much about your training. Obviously, you had some. You made it to the WWF at that time. You know, played football, did wrestling, about 6'6", 310 in high school. Let's give or take inch or weight here. Um, all that's the exciting stuff to me. There's a couple things I learned, which intrigued my mind. You were way ahead of your game because you were editing, you were making highlight reel videos before it was even possible to do. But you found a way. How uh, how were you so aware that you needed to do that?
You know, that's a good question because I don't know. I thought in terms of, as I was working my way up through the independents in Florida, which there wasn't a whole lot. It was just,
Yeah,
it
back then.
was a lot less companies or shows to work on back in those days. But every decision I made, I would ask myself, what would Vince McMahon be looking for
Mm.
with this concept? And that's how the Garbage Man character came about. First of all, I had this great name somebody gave me, Rocco Gibraltar, and I
Classic.
knew that I needed a good gimmick on it to catch Vince's attention. So I became the Garbage Man, Rocco Gibraltar, wrestling down in Florida. And when I became that character, and I decided that was the character I was going with, and that I was going to try and get into the WWF with, then I went full speed ahead, taping every single thing I did because I knew I had an idea putting this tape together, and it was three parts. The very first part was a promo, the second part was a highlight reel, and the last part was just a whole match in its entirety to show them how I could work. And I didn't see a whole lot of people doing that at the time, really. A lot of it was word of mouth, and guys weren't sending tapes or anything, but I knew it had to be something a little bit more spectacular because I didn't have friends or any family that worked in the
Right.
business. Well, it's definitely not in WWF. So I was going to have to figure out a way to catch their attention on my own. So that's where this concept came from. And then my brother John is just this genius with technology, man. And anytime I come up with a creative concept, um, and I give it to him. I say, "This is what I'm trying to accomplish." He immediately has a way to make it work and make it happen. And what he and I ended up doing, this is back in 1993, mind you, we had two VCRs and a bunch of VCR tapes of my matches, on
Yep.
VHS tapes.
Yep.
And I would go through and I watched every single tape of every single match I'd done down there as the Garbage Man, Rocco Gibraltar. And I scripted every single tape with counter numbers as to where there were moves or other things that I wanted to include. And then I created an entire script of counter numbers with moves and flipped it all around and put it in some order I thought was good. And I said, this is the highlight reel part. I said, this is the highlight reel I want. And me and my brother went through piece by piece and took each tape, put another tape in, fast forwarded to that counter number, taped that onto the tape, next move, one move at a time on a VHS tape recorder, and created this thing. And then my brother laid music over it. He had an 8 track recording, a
Yeah.
recorder where he laid Cool Mo D's "I Go to Work" rap song over the
Classic.
top of that highlight reel. And then it was just a matter. I found the local promoter, and I went to the dump, and I cut a promo, screaming and yelling, and then I just put one of my matches on the end of it, and that was the tape. And then of course I went and got 8x10s done, and I actually wrote a resume of not just the wrestling experience, but like the fact that I was just finishing college at the time,
Yep.
and all these other things. And the funny thing about it, it all came together just kind of perfectly because I was reading the paper one day
Mm.
and it was talking about the steroid scandal. That's right when this was happening. And Hulk Hogan had just jumped to WCW, and it was about this local television executive convention, and it being held in the Miami Beach Convention Center. That's down near where I lived. I lived in Miami. And they were talking about how Hulk Hogan had jumped to WCW and how Vince McMahon was going through the steroid scandal. And they interviewed Hulk Hogan about it, and he had his comments. And then the last sentence in the thing said Vince McMahon, who was also in attendance, had no comment. I realized Vince McMahon was in Miami, Florida. And I'm sitting here getting ready to go travel the United States trying to get a job somewhere in the last remaining territories with this little promo package I got. And I was like, shit, he's here. I got to go into that. I got to get into that freaking convention. So I found out somebody that I knew that I was friends with was a TV executive actually at one of the local channels. He was a vice president of Channel 2, like, like almost like a public access channel, but he had TV executive credentials and he gave them to me. And I wore a suit and put on his credentials, and I walked right in that fucking convention, and I walked right up to Vince McMahon, and I introduced myself, and I told him I wanted to work for him and wrestle for him in the World Wrestling Federation, and I just blindsided him, man. I caught him out of nowhere. He was over drinking his cup of coffee the first thing in the morning by himself, and all the other office stooges were milling around on the other side, and I caught Vince by himself, and I went right to him, and I pitched him for about 45 seconds, and I just asked at its earliest convenience if you could take a look at this and just get in touch with me. All my information's on there if you like what you see, and I appreciate your time. And I got the fuck out of there. I got the hell out of Dodge.
That takes balls.
That it's just it came together like that, and I said, "This is it. This is the moment." And I said, I said, don't even sit here and think about it. It was literally overnight.
Right.
The plan came together overnight, and the next morning I was walking in the door, and I literally didn't give myself a chance to overthink it and worry about it until afterwards. Afterwards, I was driving away shaking like a
What did I
leaf, but
do?
yeah,
I
before
ruined everything.
I was like, I'm just gonna do this, man, because this is my only shot. And
Oh.
that's what I did. And then about a week later, he had JJ Dillon call me, and they brought me up and at a TV taping and had me do some dark matches, tryouts, and all that good stuff.
All right, I got a couple questions out of this. Okay, so you make this tape. First of all, brilliant mind, you and your brother, to make this highlight reel. At that time, the WWF, which is WWE now, but at that time, the WWF was very gimmick driven.
Yep.
Um, was that why you leaned towards this sanitation worker? Um, were there other gimmicks you were contemplating?
I remember the exact moment I came up with the idea. I was still in college, and I was at home one evening, laying in bed, just thinking, brainstorming ideas, and I was like, "What? I need a gimmick to go with this name, Rocco Gibraltar." And the first thing that came to mind was the G Man, Rocco Gibraltar, and I was like, "Okay, what's a G Man?"
Right.
I said, okay, a G man could be like a G man, like a federal agent. They used to call them G men back in the day, like a federal FBI agent. Or G Man could be the garbage man. And then it just came out. I said, the garbage man, Rocco Gibraltar. And it just flowed. And I immediately stopped and I went, this is it, because Vince McMahon loves gimmicks. He loves a working class
Yep.
gimmick,
Yeah, he
baby
does.
face, blue collar guy that the fans will get behind. It's got all the perfect earmarks of something he would love. And that was when I was off to the races with it.
Um, First of all, Rocco Gibraltar, a
It's like the
classic,
coolest name
the
ever.
coolest name ever. Uh, so uh, as you said, you got the call back. Come up, do some dark matches, some training. About 24 years old. When eventually when Shane McMahon comes to you and says, look, we're it's great. We're gonna give you Duke the Dumpster Droese. What are your initial thoughts? Because as we both agree, the Garbage Man Rocco Gibraltar is great. And you're getting the good old. Well, we're gonna give you a name and own that. What are your initial
Yeah.
thoughts? And did you care at that time?
Well, it was funny. The Duke the Dumpster
Mm.
Droese. Droese, obviously, it's my real last name. So
Yep.
when he said it, the first thing I said, kind of half jokingly, is I went, "My mom's gonna be so proud." And he just looked at me because he barely knew me. He didn't know my sense of humor yet. He just kind of looked at me like trying to figure out if I was being an asshole or being a smart at what I was doing. But I kind of laughed it off, but I was willing. I said, whatever, man. Whatever you want to call me, that's fine. Because I knew they wanted to own licensing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, all for the everything else as far as the intellectual property belonged to me. I mean, obviously the garbage man, Rocco Gibraltar and Duke the Dumpster were the same exact guy, except the
Right.
name tag was different. That's it. And it's interesting because like for the first, I don't know, a few months, I was still wearing the Rocco jumpsuit from Florida, but Shane had me put a tan shirt over it. That's why in my early pictures there's a different colored shirt over the top part of the outfit, because at the dump when we were cutting the promos doing the vignettes, he had to cover up the name tag Rocco with a shirt, and I had to wear that until I got a new Duke shirt made with a Duke tag on it. But that's kind of how it all went down. But yeah, Shane was kind of working his way through the different aspects of the company at the time, and at that, just my luck, he was working at the studio at that point, and he produced all my vignettes and stuff. So we hung out for like 3 days, driving around Stamford, Connecticut, cutting a bunch of promos
As a garbage man.
as a garbage man on the back of a real garbage truck. We met in the middle of the road somewhere that was really picking up garbage in the middle of their route, and they stopped everything so I could do those promos off the back of the truck. And then we went to the dump, and I climbed up like this 50-foot mountain of trash to cut promos. And yeah, and then we did one like in the back. I was sleeping inside of an actual garbage truck. That was disgusting, but yeah, we just any idea he came up with, we did it, and there was a lot of good little vignettes that came out of that.
um, you get that call. You're going up. Like this is like you're getting dark matches. This is it. You made the tape. It's all falling into place, so to speak. Was there a steep learning curve from the training, the stuff you had been doing before WWF to now these dark matches? Uh, is there a steep learning curve?
Not really. The dark matches I did, I worked with Reno Riggins. Those were my tryouts. I worked with him for 2 nights, and he made me look like $1 million. I still, to this day, give him a lot of credit with helping me get that job. But as far as actual wrestling, minor differences. They would call something different. They would call a hip toss out of the corner. They called it a beel,
Oh,
as where I always just called it a hip toss.
right.
And so little things like that would come up every once in a while in the middle of a match. But I mean, uh, the guys at that level are all so good. Everybody is so good up there for the most part that it's real easy to work with pretty much everybody there.
Um, One of the most interesting things that I found. while I was preparing was your angle, your I guess angle slash feud with Mr. Jerry Lawler, because I believe that was one of the first times I remember seeing a trash can directly to the head of somebody.
Yeah,
Back then in the WWF, like that was hardcore slash attitude before it was the Attitude Era.
yeah.
Um, was that planned out? Was that quote unquote in the script? How did that come about?
Well, there was first of all there was no script. They back in those days they just told you basically what they wanted and sent you out there. And this was live. This was live Raw, live
Right?
television
Yeah,
this
that was
night.
all. Yeah, exactly. Live then.
And this was also considered the PG era, the original PG era, when it was still geared towards family entertainment and kids, you
Yep.
know. But the initial idea they gave us was I'm going to go out for King. Jerry's going to call me out to King's Court because earlier on Superstars, when I came out, he tried to interview me and put a clothespin on his nose to make fun of me like I
Oh,
stunk. And I dumped garbage on his head, right?
what a
So
jerk.
then, fast forward to Monday Night Raw live television, he makes me come out to the ring so he can ridicule me and make fun of me. And he won't let me get in the ring. He won't hardly let me talk. And what their idea was is for me to finally get fed up with it and finally say, "That's it. I've had enough of this crap. I'm getting out of here." And as I walked away, he was supposed to jump me from behind and beat me up. Um, it was Jerry Lawler's idea to ask me. He asked me. He said, "Do you think it would be okay if I used the garbage can and hit you with it?" Now, when I was down in Florida, man, I was hitting everybody with the garbage can. They were hitting. If I was a heel, they were hitting me with it somehow. So everybody was getting hit with that damn garbage can, and the people loved it. People popped every time, and I was like, "Dude, absolutely. If it's okay with them, I'm fine with it." And so what we did, and this was a very strategic move, I think, on Jerry Lawler's part, is we looked for the one agent in the back who we figured didn't give a shit what we did
Yeah.
as long as it got over. And that guy was Jack Lanza, Black Jack Lanza. We walked up to him and goes, "Hey, would this be okay?" And I just remember he looked at us both and he goes, "Fuck it, it's live TV. Just do it." And I looked at Jerry. I said, "We're doing it." And so we went out and everything went down the way it did. And if you notice, as soon as he hits me, the camera shoots away to a wide angle because they panicked. Kevin Dunn in the truck freaked out because it was too violent. And
Yeah.
they pulled the cameras way far away, and all you could see was the can going up and down. And they freaked out, man. The office freaked out. We went back, we got in the back after all that. We went back to inside the locker room in the gorilla position, and they were milling around like, "Oh my god, da, 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 what are we gonna do?" And Shane McMahon ran up to me and he goes, "What happened? What happened?" "What do you mean?" I said, "We talked about doing this deal with the garbage can, and we asked if we could do it. They said, yeah, and we did it." He goes, "Oh man, no, but I don't know, man." And he walked away, and they were milling around and trying to figure out how to deal with it. So what they did is immediately they had the two commentators on the live Raw, which was, at that point was Gorilla Monsoon and
Oh.
Macho Man Randy Savage,
Oh.
come on
Yeah.
live immediately and frickin' apologize for it. And they said, "You'll never see something that violent again on live WWF television." So, which at that point, I really didn't think anything of it. And then, like, when I got home from that trip, I remember I would go home and I was taping everything, like I would tape every show.
Yeah.
And I watched, I think, one of the weekend shows, like Superstars, and they had Jerry Lawler come on and do this stupid apology where they taped him and he was apologizing for attacking me with the can and all that stuff. And I realized at that moment, I was like, "Ah, man, this just killed a really red hot angle, man. We had so much potential." And because they're so scared, I guess, of TV sponsorships or something because of the
Mm.
violence of it, they're cutting us off, and they're watering it down, which is what they did. And we ended up not even getting a pay per view match out of it. we ended up on another Raw to do the big blow off. We wrestled on Monday Night Raw where Doink and Dink came out and got involved, and that turned Jerry Lawler versus Doink, and then
Yeah,
they had all the little
little doinks. Yeah,
they had all the midget kings versus all the
yeah.
midget dinks and
Survivor
doinks.
Series. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, but me and Jerry never got a pay per view out of it. But that's how that all went down, and it was interesting to look around that locker room after we did it, and you could tell some of those guys were like, "Who the hell is this new guy? I think he is coming in
Yeah,
here and just blowing this shit up like this." People were not too happy about it. I think I remember I was riding with Bob Holly and Adam Baum, and I got in the car to go to the next town, and I think Adam Baum was driving, and they go, "Dude, you're in the middle of some heavy duty shit right now." And I was just sitting there oblivious. I was like, "This is just an angle to me." I
yeah.
mean, I don't even. I think this is how you're supposed to do things, but apparently, I guess you have to tread lightly when you first start there and be very careful or whatever. And I just never gave a shit about any of that stuff. I was like, if it gets over, let's do it. But
Right.
that's how it started, and that's how all that came about. And yeah, it was Lawler's idea, and we ran it by Lanza, and he okayed it. So we just went and freaking did it.
And it's so funny to me, looking back in hindsight, because I mean, no more than maybe three. I mean, maybe 3 years later, like we're in the Attitude Era. We're like DX. We're like hardcore championships.
Yeah,
We're trash
dumpster
cans.
matches.
Yeah,
Yep.
like not even 3 years later, and like to me, this is how I perceive it. Like I'd be extremely frustrated. Like, did you go through that? Did you feel that? Was there ever talk of bringing you in the Attitude Era?
It was interesting. I was very frustrated when I ended up leaving. I was
Right.
complaining a lot, and I think Vince got sick of me because that's also when the drug use started, and I was using a lot of painkillers to get by. Later on, I had that feud with Triple H where I really hurt my back one night, so I was really compensating with using pain meds and drinking a lot of alcohol after shows or whatever.
Yeah.
But they ended up saying you could go ahead on home, and I went home, and I remember I got home, and the drug use got a lot worse, and the drinking got a lot worse. But I did still try to improve myself. I was lifting weights and didn't. I did some steroids, which was stupid, and but I got bigger, and I went and wrestled in Germany for a while, and came back, and I went and got another. I called WWF, and I talked to Bruce Pritchard, and they brought me in, and they made me try out again. And
Mm.
this was during the Attitude Era. I went in and they made me do a tryout match. It was me versus um, Carl, Pierre,
Oh,
PCO,
PCO.
Pierre
Yeah, yeah,
Olette.
yeah.
Yeah, he was trying to get back in too, so we had to try out against each other. And another guy that was trying to get in was Shawn Michaels' buddy, Paul Diamond, who
Mm.
used to be Max Moon. I had to do a tryout match versus him. And they weren't the greatest matches in the world. And I was really, I don't know, I wasn't that into it. But another thing that was going on at that time was I also went and got a tryout with WCW.
Oh.
And the interesting thing was they both came up really close together, like within a couple of weeks. And I asked two people, two guys that had been my friend, Bret Hart and Steve Austin. I asked them advice, and Bret Hart said, "You need to do both of them. That's the professional thing to do. You need to do both." And Austin, I later asked him, and he said, "You need to pick the one you want to work for and just go do that one because these are very vindictive people." And I listened to the wrong guy. I listened to Brett, and I did them both. And exactly what Steve said happened. They both were pissed, and nobody called me in. And that's when I really just got super frustrated with the whole business. And then that downward
Yeah.
spiral just really accelerated, and things got really bad after that. But that's how it kind of went down. Yeah, it was interesting. Steve Austin always gave me the best advice, and I never took it.
Yeah. You said Bret Hart, Steve Austin, two buddies, backstage, both gave advice. Never took Steve's. Why take Brett's over Steve's at that time?
Uh, Up until the point where I had left, Brett was the champion, and Brett was just very well respected, and didn't.
Right.
I would later realize that a lot of the things Brett was telling me were not right. They were not correct. He was winding me up, and I didn't realize that though till after the fact when I was gone. Whereas Austin was just trying to be a friend because we rode together, and he was trying to like legitimately be a good friend and give me advice. And like I said, I just didn't take it because Brett had been the champion and had that respect for so long that I just thought he was going to give me the best advice. This was before the Stone Cold era really took
Yep.
off. As I went in for that tryout again later, that's when Steve Austin was just about taking off. It was like 19, it was not the end of 97 into 98 somewhere where things were really starting to rock and roll. Um, but when he initially gave me that advice, I didn't see him as he wasn't this megastar yet, and I was just thinking that Brett was this well-respected champion who was giving me good advice, and turned out he really wasn't.
Why do you think Brett was winding you up? Any reason behind it?
I don't know. I think those guys had fun doing that kind of shit because I saw one time, you know, Lex Luger was on the
Yep.
original Nitro with
Yep.
that big coup where he jumped ship. Remember that?
Yep.
And I remember I was riding with Brett, Owen, and Davey, and we were in a minivan. And I just remember it was Davey Boy was tagging with Lex Luger. They had that bit for a while. They had that babyface tag team, I think, and then they switched, and Davey was a heel, and
Yep.
Owen and Davey, and all these different things. But they used to talk about how they were winding up Lex Luger to the point where he left. And I just remember sitting in that minivan, hearing that, and not really even thinking about it, going, "Wow, I can't believe why would they do that to that guy?" He kind of took pride in the fact that he wound up Lex Luger the way he did, almost to the point where he was taking credit for Lex
Right.
quitting and leaving and jumping ship and going to WCW. But the fact that I sat and I was privy to that conversation amongst the Hart guys and Davey and those guys in the minivan, made me realize, man, these guys are fucking cutthroat vicious, man. You got to be careful.
Um. Damn. Uh. Great stuff. Great stuff there. With Austin and Brett, I got a ton of other stuff we're gonna get to, but I'm gonna save it. I've been the advice I've been given, Mister Droese, is leave a lot on the table for return appearances.
Sure.
Helps everybody. Um, so I'm gonna leave the King of the Ring, the Royal Rumble feud with Triple H. I'm leaving all that on. I also am so enthralled in the journey which got you how he kicked off tonight's show to got you literally where you are. Um, it's tragic is it's a journey. It's a roller coaster wave.
It's a story of redemption.
Yes, that is it. Thank you. It is a story of redemption for sure. And I think people need to hear it, and I think it needs its own dedicated stuff. So I'm leaving all that on the table to bring you
Oh,
back somewhere, down the line in the future when it works.
well, anytime, brother.
Yeah.
Anytime.
What we like to do at the end of every show is I'm going to give you the proverbial mic. You can cut a promo. You can put over anybody you want. You can bury anybody you want. You can plug anything you want. I'm not going to speak in your ear. I will not interrupt. The floor is yours.
Well, all right then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I really appreciate being on the show tonight, and I appreciate the welcome that the fans have given me. When I came back out of obscurity to get involved in doing the conventions and things and the meet and greets and getting back in touch with fans. There seems to be this nostalgic look back, and it's been really great. And the fans have been so nice to me, and I really do appreciate it. I am on social media, man. My Facebook page is where it started, which is the Mike Droese Facebook page. But now I've got Duke the Dumpster official YouTube. I've got a Duke the Dumpster official TikTok. I even have a real Duke Droese Twitter that I never use, but if you look at TikTok and the YouTube and Facebook, you can see what I'm doing. I'm doing a little. Actually, I've got two podcasts going right now.
Yes, sir.
One is on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, called the Recovery Podcast. Me and one of my coworkers from the drug court that I work for, we talk recovery on Friday nights. And then Saturday, I do a show called Trash Cam Live, which is a spinoff of a concept I tried to do in the WWF. I had this camera and they called it the trash cam until it got over, and then Shawn Michaels stole it and named it the
Oh,
click cam, and he named it the click cam. But now
that
I have trash cam live every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So those are the two things, and you can see both of those on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook channels. And just come check me out, man. I really appreciate the welcome that the fans have given me, and doing shows like this, man. I really appreciate the opportunity, my friend.
yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I think you have a plethora of knowledge to bring as far as wrestling goes, but I think the stuff you have to bring and shed light to that's non-wrestling uh is so much more important. Mental health, drug recovery, relapse, all that is needs to be heard, and I'd love to give that platform. So anytime you want to come on, don't feel like you need to discuss wrestling, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right
So
on. That's great. Yeah, like I said, anytime I'm available. I'll be glad to do the show whenever you want, man.
spectacular. You've been a pleasure to talk to. You've been easy to talk to, and I'm gonna bid you a fair adieu. Have yourself a wonderful night. Get some sleep, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace, man.
Peace.
Yeah. Have a great night.
You too.
Later. Great. Great.